Hey everybody, and welcome back to the compositing tutorial. My name is Spencer, and we're going to go through a little bit more of the specifics of how to get both the animation and the backgrounds to look better. This will be the secondary step in this. I think it's going to be 3 videos. One for the one was the last one. You should have watched that before you watch this one. This one will be about improving the flow of the animation and making the backgrounds look nice. And the next one will be about the different effects that you can put on to make everything look peachy keen. So without further ado, let's talk about, for starters, how we're going to improve this. So what I've got here is a little bit of an animation. It's got my friend, it's got me, we're doing our talk and whatnot. We covered the whole process of this in the last episode. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and basically go fix each shot individually. So the first thing that I want to do is demonstrate a lot of these backgrounds, because a lot of people when they see like my raw files are like, why are you doing your stuff with photoreal? Wouldn't it be easier to just do it in not photoreal? And the answer to that is it's complicated. Essentially, there are a lot of different styles of not photoreal, and there is one style of photoreal. So what I like to do is I like to do everything in photoreal and then just stylize it later, because that's an easier step to me than building up all of these, databases of things in this one particular non-photoreal style. And then if I need to make something that's in a different non-photoreal style, I have the option to like cobble it together from my databases or like find tutorials online about how to make that stuff. And frankly, I just don't think it works as well as this particular method. So I'm going to show you basically my process for taking this photoreal stuff and making it look a little bit better in animated form. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the first shot. I'm going to select the background, and I am going to add in some effects, because this is After Effects after all. See what I did there? It's clever. The first effect that I'm going to add is cartoon, and this is the one here. Stylized cartoon, and you can see that as soon as I add it, everything looks terrible. The reason for that is because this filter was like developed, I don't know, a really while ago, basically. I don't like the way that this looks, because it was like developed to put over live action footage and make it look more comic book, but it doesn't work, in my opinion. It is not a good filter. However, it does contain some really handy shortcuts that I'm going to use. So for starters, I'm going to crank up the detail radius a little bit. And what that's going to do is that's going to basically smooth out some nice things and unsmooth some other things. I'm going to take the detail threshold, and I'm going to bring that up as well to something like 4.2. And what that's going to do is that's going to blur out like a whole bunch of stuff. And this is a lot more close to the kind of thing that I want. And you might be like, why? And you may be right to ask that question. Well, the answer is because I'm going to turn up the shading steps. And what that's going to do is it's going to give me a lot more color to play with in this particular area. I'll turn the shading smoothness up as well to 100. So that we get good color, the goodest color. Next I'm going to go into edge. I'm going to turn the threshold down, usually like 1.5 is okay. I'm going to turn the width down as well to like 1.2. And I'm going to turn the like edge enhancement to, wait, what? Oh yeah, it's in advanced. And I'm also going to turn the opacity down to like 22, because I think that it looks bad with the opacity. Like, honestly, this is the main thing. Like, once we turn the edge opacity down, it is like actually kind of nice. I'm going to turn the edge enhancement up to 100, so we get back a lot of the like detail that we might have lost earlier. And I'm also going to turn edge contrast up to 1. And there we go. Now we're getting, this looks a lot more painterly, which is kind of the look that I want. It's still not perfect by any means, but we're getting closer. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to grab scatter, which is a different sort of stylization. Basically what it does is it takes this and it will scatter it. If I turn it up really big, it'll do a big scatter. If I turn it really low, it'll do no scatter. So I'm going to set it to only do like a little bit of scatter, and the reason for this is because I want it to add like a little bit of extra randomness for the next step, which is brush strokes. Brushstrokes is one of my favorite stylized effects, or at least it would be if it didn't have this like one really annoying feature on it, which is that like every frame it makes a new stroke. And there is a way to fix that really easily by using some of the same tools that we used last time, which is posterize time and just setting the frame rate to be 0. At 0 frames a second, it will just never move. There you go. So the last thing I'm going to do for this particular layer is I'm going to take the brush strokes and I am just going to like set the angle. I like 120. It doesn't really matter what you set the angle to. I'm also going to make the brush a lot smaller. And I am going to make the stroke length a little bit smaller as well. I'm going to turn the stroke density to like 1.2 and the stroke randomness to 1.3. And now I feel like this is a far better background looking thing than what we started with, just in my opinion. It's if we turn it off, we get back to this like photoreal, and now we have like a far more cartoony thing, in my opinion. But this still isn't perfect. We are like losing a lot of information because of the effects that we put on. So how are we going to fix that? Well, we can do another thing. This is called a high pass. It's a very different technique that is a little bit it's interesting, to say the least, in a very strange way. So a high pass is accomplished by basically blurring the image, and then you know what, I for the life of me, this is like the one thing I can't explain. I know that you invert it after you blur it, and then well, you, is it RGB? Yeah, and then I think it's CC Composite. And what that'll do is if we set it to be at 50% opacity, we'll get this like version of the thing that only has the like details, kind of. And the more blurred you get, the sharper those details are gonna look. It's interesting. So I think I had it set to 40 the last time I used this, so I'll just go with that. And then what I will do is I will set the blending mode here to overlay. And what happens is when we play with the setting a little bit, we get a little bit of the detail back in these areas. So if I were to just, yeah, turn this back up, and then if I wanted to, I could turn this up as well, but that kind of plays with the blending mode. So if I set this to 50, generally speaking, that helps me get back a little bit of the information that I lost, and I think it just helps in bringing this together. And I could be way off base. Like, I'm sure an actual artist who can do backgrounds would look at this and be like, this is ridiculous, why would you do this to a perfectly good frame? But in my opinion, this really just kind of helps sell the aesthetic that I'm looking for in regards to it being a painted background in like an anime environment. Oh, sorry, that's my timer for my chicken. I'll be right back. So one of the nice things about this is that once we have it set up, this is just something that we can copy and paste over. You might want to play around with it a little bit so that you can get settings that you do like. Like for instance, if you want more detail, it might be a good idea to turn the detail radius down, I think, on the brush over here, which will help you recover quite a bit of it. In fact, I think that's what I might do, to be honest, because I kind of like maybe I'll take it to, yeah, 7-ish is good. And then what I'm going to do is I am just going to take all of these settings and I'm going to copy paste them, because that's just like, who cares? What, are you going to stop me? I'm going to copy paste them over to this flower here. I'm going to take the I'm going to duplicate it a little bit. I'm going to remove all of these. Oh, I also forgot to add in the posterized time, so let's get that on there. And I think I might render this a little bit heavier. Like maybe I'll take the detail radius and I'll like crank it up a little bit. It can be different for foreground elements, or it can be the same. Doesn't matter. And then I'll take this foreground shot and I will just do the same thing that I did with the other in regards to CC Composite, invert, and then giving it a blending mode so that we can have a kind of restore, here we go, it was overlay. So we can more or less restore some of the details. And if you're not happy with that, by the way, you can take the blending mode and just kind of shush it. You can say shut up for a second. So I think that this is a substantial improvement personally. You may disagree and you may think that I'm stupid for doing this, and you might be right, but we're really not going to get good results until we start doing the color grading to make all of this start to fit together and whatnot. So this is like half me covering my tracks and half me saying like it gets better. So like if you're already blown away by this rather simple tech, then good news, because yeah, there's going to be a lot more of it. So I'm going to take this stuff and I am just going to apply it to basically all of the shots. So now we had a background that wasn't that good. Now it's a little bit better in my opinion. That's pretty nice. Now shot 3 will probably be a bit of a special case because the background does animate here, which means that we can't necessarily posterize the time because then the background won't animate. So there isn't really much of a way around this except for to identify where the background starts to change and to tell the posterized time that actually at this point you don't have to be that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it keyframe here that says 0, and then for the next one I will say 24, and then I'll just kind of allow it to repaint all the way through. And this probably isn't the most elegant solution. There might be something clever that you can do, but I don't feel like doing something clever for this. So past this point, I'm allowing it to go, but if I set it back to 0, what'll happen is it will set it back to the first frame. So basically, in order to get around that, I have to go grab the after shot from inside this section and just kind of put that there instead. Then I can paste all of these effects on there. So cartoon, scatter, brush strokes, and posterize time, just like that. Control C, Control V, and then we'll take the posterized time and set it to 0. So now we're kind of getting some brush motion over here. Hopefully that won't be too distracting, but I guess only time will tell. And by time I do mean the export. Anyways, let's copy paste this stuff onto the rest of it, and then we'll talk about how we can make the characters look a little bit nicer, or at least a little bit more hand-drawn. Alright, so now that I've substantially visually upgraded basically all of my backgrounds, I'm going to be teaching how to make your 3D animation look that much better. So here I've got two 3D animated characters. I think their movement in this is pretty okay. It's definitely not my best work, but it's certainly passable for what it is. However, there is like a little bit more that we can do to make this movement in particular look a bit more palatable and look a little bit more hand-drawn. And that is something called Turbulent Displacement. Now, Turbulent Displacement is a tool that I really love. I cannot get enough of this tool, and apparently neither can this cat. Turbulent Displacement is basically a tool that will kind of warp your video around in a weird way. It's interesting for sure, and it takes up a lot of processing power, and I think that it honestly has a lot of power, at least in how we use it. So one of the advantages of Turbulent Displacement is that it will make your thing look a little bit different in every frame. And why is that an advantage? Well, with 3D animation, one of the things that keeps it looking 3D is that you get kind of this persistence of geometry where you can tell that something is the same in every frame, whereas if something is hand-drawn, there are always going to be some pieces that wiggle around here or there when you're going from each new drawing to a different drawing. So Turbulent Displacement kind of helps to abate that a little bit. Basically what you can do, I like to set it to like 40 and then 5, I think, for the size. No, maybe it was 5 and then 40 the other way around. I don't remember. I think that's right. Basically what I like to do is I will set it so that it like very slightly distorts my character, and then on every frame where they move, I basically animate the displacement. So right here, realistically, their mouth is moving, so realistically that wouldn't necessarily be like a whole new thing. It would just be like a drawing, particularly in that region. But for this part where their entire body moves, that would be a whole new drawing. So what I do is I would go to the evolution, I would keyframe it, and pressing U, by the way, so that I can see the thing, and I would evolve from this to basically the last frame where, you know, that changes. So from there, maybe I'll change it to be like something along those lines, yeah, 180 or something like that, so that when this character moves, we kind of get like a weird bit of distortion. And you can change the kind of distortion that you get, you can make it different. It honestly doesn't seem to matter that much to me. I don't ever see that many big changes in the different ways, so I just leave it on turbulent. However, if you are very sharp-eyed, you might be able to tell that since our character is posterized, we are getting 2 bits of different motion for every frame. So the way to fix that is just to take turbulent displacement and put it over here so that the posterize automatically just kind of defaults it. And there we're getting some weird like swimming motion with the head. Obviously, turbulent displacement isn't going to be as effective as like actually drawing everything, because it distorts things randomly without much account for how an animator would distort things. But this is pretty darn close in my opinion, and I really like the results that I can get from this. So I'm going to just do this basically. I'm going to find every frame where my character moves, and I'm going to distort them for those frames. So here, we get some more distortion. And this is, honestly, this is super subtle stuff, like most people probably would not notice it, but I look at this and I'm like, oh, that could genuinely be 2D. So again, I set the turbulence to, it was like 5 and 40, I think? Yeah, something like that. And then I just animate the evolution. So U, to open it up, I see this character is moving from here, and then the movement stops right around there. So I'm going to take this and I am going to animate that just by like a little bit. It doesn't have to be that much. And then we get some interesting kind of motion artifacts whenever this character does actually do a move. So let's take this and we'll animate it some more. And this can absolutely be tedious, but I absolutely want to make something really cool. So that's going to be something that I do. Now, my food is almost ready, which means that I'm going to have to spare just doing this for every single frame. However, I do want to leave you off. I will be doing that basically once I'm done recording and once I'm done eating. But I do want to leave you off with something a little bit more flashy than turbulent displacement. And that, I think in this case, is going to be, let me turn off these layers because they're taking up a lot of processing power. That, I think, is going to be smear frames, because smear frames, in my opinion, are pretty freaking fun, and there's a lot that we can do with them if we just decide to use them. So a smear frame, for those of you who somehow don't know about what smear frames are, is a frame that contains intentional animation errors or like extra lines or something to just say like, hey, this is to exaggerate the motion a little bit. So one of the things that I want to do around this point is I see that this character has like a really satisfying thing. So what I want to do is I want to, for starters, kind of change around the posterized time frame rate. I want it to be at 12 frames per second here, but I then want it to be something like 18 so that we get like a really satisfying like swing of motion, as opposed to if it was just posterized, because now, you know, the payoff is all the much better when we get the big explosion that flings him out of the sky. The other thing I'm going to do the same thing for Chloe. So I'm going to basically set a keyframe for her posterized time, and then I'm going to set her to start moving at 18 frames per second, right? Sorry, that's 180. I don't have enough frames for that. But now, basically, at this point, we kind of get like a more interesting kind of look. I'm going to set her to be back at 12. Past that point, because there's an animation error there that really bugs me, and I won't point it out because otherwise somebody else will see it. But basically, this is a way of intentionally adding more fluidity for certain points if you want that. And then what you can do, if you really want to have fun with it, which I definitely do because this is a scene about my character getting blown up, is I can duplicate this and then I can kind of shift it off to one side. So I can just like kind of, if I'm so inclined, which I definitely am, I can make my character kind of exist in 2 spots at once. So now, if I just like, I only have to do it for 1 or 2 frames, before for people to like get the point. So maybe I'll only have it for there, and we'll just have 2 green stripes. But then, boom, you know, we get an interesting kind of look, and I think you can tell. So I might change the posterized time to be actually like 24 frames a second, so that we get some different frames in there. So something like, if I just move this up a little bit, we can kind of get something like that is kind of fun. And then maybe I can grab another smear frame and I can shift it over from another side. So maybe I'll take this one and I'll just bring that by. And this is something you might want to use selectively to just give yourself a little bit more fluidity in your motion. It's up to you how you want to use it. I am not going to be a smear frame pedant of any kind. I think that these are just fun things to do, and I want people to be able to have fun with animation because I think that animation is unfortunately very fun. So something like that is pretty good. Yeah, I like that. And then at this point I might mask my character once his arc starts to fall, because at this point he should probably have cleared the trees. So like right around here maybe I'll add in a mask to just cover him up and make him disappear completely. Just like that, and I'll make it cover up where he does end up falling. Like that. And we'll have to invert that mask. And then, there we go, something like that. And then my character falls out of frame. And yeah, I think that's basically what I wanted to talk about. Smear frames, you can do them. There are a lot of other ways that you can do this as well. Like if you're so inclined, you can add in like a directional blur, which can make that a lot more fun actually. So maybe you should. It'll basically just be like a blur, and then you can control the direction that it's going in. So you can make it super blurry. And then if it's like like that, oh god, that's so good. I love this so much. You can have fun with it. I'm probably not doing the best example because now I'm not thinking about smear frames. I'm thinking about my chicken, my delicious chicken meal that I'm fully intend on having. There, so something like this, right? I like that. We get kind of a ghost form of the frame in between this one and the next one, and then this one, maybe I'll also put a bit of a directional blur on that and change up the frame rate some more, so we might get a different related frame. So yeah, that's what I've got for today. Thank you very much for your time and attention. In the next tutorial, we are going to be talking about some of the coloring effects and some of the lighting effects that we can put on here to make it actually look like these characters belong in this area, as opposed to just being 2 cartoony characters thrown in a forest with some, photoreal environment with a filter slapped on it for some reason. So until then, bye, weirdo.